Death Dames. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone.
Hello. You have no idea what we just went through.
Yes. Every time it's exciting to try to figure out how to clap at the same time via the internet.
It doesn't work.
It does not work, no. Well, welcome to Death Dames, a true crime / science / history / comedy podcast. I am your co-host, Kimberly Baker.
Hi, I'm Allie.
And I'm Lila.
I just felt like I was in the girls' room.
Yeah, so everyone, thank you so much for coming back. We've actually recently hit quite a few listeners to our interesting little podcast, which is really, really great. So, thank you guys all so much for the support we've received, and we're loving it. We're going to keep doing it as long as we can.
Yes, thank you.
You're stuck with us now.
Yeah, if you've hit subscribe, you can't never unsubscribe. Yeah, cool. How's everyone? How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
cool.
Life is good.
Sometimes. Living the life.
Are you not enjoying the awkwardness that I'm bringing to the table right now?
I mean,
I love it, Kim.
It's top grade.
All awkward, all the time.
Yes, that should be our motto.
I'm currently drinking I don't remember the name of it.
Okay, great.
Rooibos. I'm drinking an almond rooibos tea.
Almond?
Oh.
Yes.
That sounds so awful.
Oh, you don't like almond?
I love almond.
No, okay, I love almonds. Almond extract tastes nothing like almond, and it is made by the devil.
I like fig almond, so I
Me
disagree.
too.
You're in the minority on that one, buddy. So, just to get ourselves into
Situated.
it. All right, well, we'll do the icebreaker portion.
Okay.
I figured we could do our usual going around and something that made you smile this week. This week, the thing that made me smile was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix.
Yes.
I am obsessed with it. But no, it is amazing. It is hilarious. It is shocking, and it's just great. And I highly, highly recommend everyone check it out.
I'm on episode 5. I just started yesterday.
I'm on episode added to my list. We'll get to it eventually.
Perfect. All right. Either of you have your thing that made you smile?
I do. So I was at Walmart, the Devil's Playground, on Wednesday, and there was this girl with a baby that had a full Hayao Miyazaki sleeve.
The baby did?
No.
I was going to say the woman or the baby?
I know. Yeah, you definitely worded that.
Sorry. I saw a woman with a baby. She, the woman, the mother.
I saw a woman with a baby, comma.
in full color, and Totoro was fully like front and center.
That's awesome.
Oh my god, it was so cool.
I definitely thought you were going in a different direction. Like you were like, there was a lady at Walmart with a baby, period.
That was literally all I was expecting. On Wednesday, I went to Walmart and there was a baby. That was all I was expecting to come out of that.
Right.
No.
We were kind of just expecting that all of your things that make you smile are just child related.
No. I mean, the baby was really cute, but
well, it had a tattoo.
It did. It had a full sleeve. But no, it was really cool, and it was in full color, and I stopped her and admired it, and it was really awesome.
Very cool.
Also, can I just say that most people would have just said, I saw a woman at Walmart with a tattoo that I really liked.
But they wouldn't specify that there was a baby?
Yes. They would have left the baby part out.
Not Lila.
Do you know who I am?
And Allie, what made you smile this week?
So, about 10-15 minutes ago, my boyfriend walked in his room and handed me a plate of cheesy fries and one of the burgers from the Bob's Burgers cookbook.
Oh, I love that cookbook. I never get to use it though.
I don't either.
He picked it up today and I'm like, oh, you need to make that for me now. So it's the poutine on the Ritz burger.
Nice.
Yeah. I haven't eaten it yet because it's hard to mute the mic and eat a burger.
Especially a poutine burger.
Yeah, it's literally covered in gravy.
Good.
All right. Well, should we do the thing that people are here to listen to?
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe.
They don't want to hear about my burger.
No. So today's story, I actually surprisingly had never heard of it, which as I get into the story a little more, I think you guys will also be surprised that I've never heard of it because it's literally like a Kim story. So the research topic for today, which I'm also handling, I did the research for last week's and I'm also doing the research for this week's, but going forward, I think for the most part, Allie's going to be taking over the research unless something pops up where my expertise, quote unquote, is needed.
Okay.
Yes.
But in this case, the research topic is going to be kind of a very, very, very quick overview of Egyptian mummification.
Okay.
Because the story itself actually deals with that a little bit. So I figured since it's episode 4, it is time for me to spread my archaeologist wings and cover a mummy mystery story.
Ooh.
Today we're going to cover the mystery of the Persian princess, a mummy discovered in the year 2000.
Ooh.
Ooh. Also totally unrelated, but because let's stay on topic. Hold on, totally unrelated. While researching this, I found there's actually a beer called the Persian Princess.
Oh.
And it's by a brewery called the Welton's Brewery, and it has a 3.64 stars out of 5. So, now you know. We're a beer review podcasts now.
The more you know.
I tried to find it because I wanted to have it, but it's like it's not. I think it was discontinued in like 2013. But we're going to get into our time machine.
Okay.
And we're going to travel back to the year 2000. We're going to specifically go to the months of October and November, just to kind of get you guys, really feeling the nostalgia, really in the mood for the 2000s. In the year 2000, at this time in the United States, Christina Aguilera's song Come On Over Baby is knocked out of first place in the Billboard charts by Creed's song With Arms Wide Open.
Oh my God!
It was a bad time for American music. Also, the underrated Brendan Fraser movie Bedazzled is released in theaters.
I love Bedazzled.
I know. And also, I looked up a list of Christmas toys that were popular for that season.
Yes.
And one of the go-to gifts for the impending holiday season were hit clips.
Hit clip!
Oh, gosh.
Do you remember that? You might have been too young, Allie.
I never had them. I know what they are.
If you like this song, you're going to listen to the same 30-second clip of it.
For like the next year.
Until that little plastic piece of crap fell apart.
Pretty much.
Anyways, this is way off topic. I just, yeah.
As per usual,
As per usual. But this story actually doesn't take place anywhere where there would be hit clips, that I know of at least. It takes place in the border region of Pakistan, where on October 19th, police received a tip that an Iranian man was attempting to sell an ancient mummy in a carved wooden box on the black market. The man, named Ali Akbar, was arrested, and recovered in his home was an amazing find, a mummy in Pakistan. When interrogated about the item, Ali Akbar claimed that the mummy had been unearthed when an earthquake disturbed an archaeological site in the desert. Police were exuberant and immediately took the mummy to the Archaeology Museum in Karachi. Now, to you guys, it might not seem really exciting, like, wow, cool, a mummy. But to put this in context, a discovery of a mummy in Egypt, though very exciting, isn't that big of a deal. However, this was the find of the century, as there had never been a mummy discovered in Pakistan, ever.
Oh, wow.
So if this was, in fact, a Pakistani mummy, it would completely rewrite history books. And the mummy itself was beautiful. It was lying inside of an ornately carved wooden box, which was already open at the time police discovered it. So when the curator from the Karachi National Museum, Dr. Asma Ibrahim, began her investigations into the mummy, she was ecstatic. The wrappings were beautifully done, and she was wearing a crown and a golden death mask. There was also an exquisite cypress tree chest plate made of gold laid on top of the mummy's crossed arms, and was covered in a script type never before seen in Pakistan. The same mysterious script was repeated on the wooden box and stone coffin. The whole mummy itself was an incredible work of art. Additionally, the mummy was tiny. It was only 4 feet 7 inches long.
Oh my God.
For those not in America, it's 1.4 meters. And it was covered in a resin impregnated cloth, which had formed a hard protective shell around it.
Oh.
I just keep thinking of the goo inside.
The goo inside. Well, mummies aren't gooey. They're inherently not gooey.
I know, but that's just what I think of. I watch a lot of Bones.
Oh, yeah. No. Gross. No. I've never seen one look like that before. Juicy.
Juicy
Sorry,
mummy.
I'm gonna keep the mummy references to a minimum. It's gonna happen though, so
it's
I'm gonna
fine.
try, though. However, The first big question emerged. Who was this mummy? No one had ever seen a mummy in Pakistan before, so there was also some concern as to where it came from. Was it from outside Pakistan? Was it from Egypt? In the minds of many historians studying the mummy at the time, this had to have come from Egypt because it had all the telling signs of ritual mummification that were unique to ancient Egyptians, such as being bound in cloth, and there was also the use of the stone coffin enclosed in a wooden sarcophagus, which was quintessentially Egyptian. However, there were distinctive differences too. In particular, the inscriptions in the cuneiform were a script used in ancient Iran, which was the center of the Persian Empire. This type of cuneiform writing was not used by the Egyptians. Additionally, carvings on the outer stone coffin were indicative of the carvings done by Persian stonemasons, including in the ancient site of Persepolis, specifically rosette borders, which were used throughout the palace schemes at Persepolis.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the rosette borders a little later. And I do have a picture of the rosette borders, like the kind of rosette design. So I will be putting that up on Instagram later. Due to all the carvings and the way that this mummy was done, the obvious conclusion was that this must have been the mummified remains of a Persian who was mummified in the Egyptian style. If that was the case, and the ancient people of Persia had basically copied the mummification techniques of the Egyptians and applied them to their own nobility, then this discovery was very unique, and the mummy would be almost priceless. Not to mention, a huge discovery for the historic community. According to leading Egyptologist at Long Island University, Dr. Bob Breyer, quote, "It would be one of the most important in the world, and there would be all kinds of scholarly papers written about it. It would be a very important mummy." When investigating the mummy, it was found that she was covered in golden artifacts, and everyone was very shocked when they translated an inscription on her breastplate that read, "I am the daughter of the great Xerxes.
What?
I am Rodugana."
That's cool.
So in this case, the mummy appeared to be a royal Persian princess.
What?
So just a quick little history lesson on Xerxes the Great. He was the 5th ruler of the Achaemenid dynasty of Persia, and most importantly, in relation to this discovery, he was also a pharaoh of ancient Egypt.
Ooh.
He ruled from 486 BC until his assassination in 465 BC. Very little is known about his daughter, Princess Rodugana. No one even knows how old she was when she died or what she died of.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, no remains of any member of the Persian royal family has ever been found before. However, the symbols carved on this coffin and all over the mummy's body were symbols consistent with the Persian royal court. And of course, there was even a gold mask in the Persian gallery of the British Museum, which closely matched the one found on the Persian princess.
Oh, how interesting.
However, one thing still kind of bugged everyone, and it was the fact that there was no evidence that the Persians ever mummified their dead, as all evidence had been destroyed or stolen, and the royal tombs in Persepolis were raided centuries ago, and the bodies were never recovered. But then, Asma Ibrahim learned something that may help to answer some of the questions about the Persian princess. She discovered that among a collection of Persian history in one of Karachi's libraries, there was a book by the Greek historian Herodotus. While traveling from Greece to Persepolis during the reign of Xerxes, Herodotus visited the royal tombs and described in detail how the Persians had preserved the bodies of their royal family. This was a huge get in terms of figuring out what the deal was with this mummy. In the book, Herodotus spoke about how the ancient Persians had embalmed their royal dead with wax and resin and placed them in sarcophagi, which was just like the Egyptians.
Oh.
So with that discovery, it did shed some light on the mystery, as it did appear that there was actual historic proof that the royal family mummified their bodies similar to the Egyptians. So with that being discovered, they thought maybe this is Rodugana.
Huh.
I mean, unfortunately, Rodugana, again, as a person, she was a complete enigma. No one knew how, when, and where she died. However, while they were studying the princess, they started noticing some stuff kind of weird. For example, Dr. Ibrahim noticed that there was some grammatical errors on the cuneiform inscriptions on the mummy's breastplate. I mean, of course, this could just be due to error, by the person doing it. I mean, we've all had typos.
Right.
Typos on a scripture for the royal family.
Yeah.
That's where you don't want typos.
This was before spell check.
I know. Somebody would have noticed and been like, yo, you spelled that wrong.
It's true.
True.
I mean, and even still, like, so Dr. Ibrahim is kind of low-key my superhero.
Okay.
She's like, female doctor, crushing it. She's just killing it.
You do love that.
I do love that.
She's an underdog.
And also, she taught herself the specific cuneiform script from the breastplate that she learned from a grammar book.
What?
She literally taught herself how to read an entire language just to better translate this breastplate.
Maybe she's my hero too. That's pretty awesome.
Yes.
That's pretty baller. Like, okay.
And it's a good thing that she did that because they actually found a pretty big error that started really raising some eyebrows. This is the fact that the name Rodugana is a Greek translation of the name Wardaguana, which was the original Persian name for Xerxes' daughter.
Oh.
So by inscribing the cuneiform text for the name Rodugana and not Wardaguana, the carver had used the spelling from a later era.
Oh.
This implied that the carving would have been done long after the reign of Xerxes, after the Greeks had conquered Persia, and long after Rodugana had died.
Huh.
These inscriptions were a fake.
What?
But the bad news kept coming.
Oh no!
When closely investigating the mummy, several weird peculiarities emerged. Due to the fake inscription, it became important to see what the body looked like inside the outer casing, and there was only one way to do this without destroying the mummy, so it was taken to a hospital and put through a CT scan. For the first time, they could see the body inside the mummy to investigate, and they noticed that there were detailed operations common to Egyptian mummifications that had been omitted. Looking in the thorax region of the mummy, the first issue they realized was that there are no internal organs.
Huh.
We'll kind of go into this a little bit when I talk about the mummification process.
Okay.
Additionally, there was a large incision in the front sternum of the mummy. The front sternum. Duh, idiot.
As opposed to the back sternum.
The back sternum. Additionally, there was a large incision on the sternum of the mummy, similar to a Y-shaped incision, which would have been used to remove the organs. This was unlike the typical Egyptian method, which would use a small 3-inch incision on the side of the torso to remove organs. So at this point, everyone's kind of wondering what's going on. So they decide to get a second opinion, and that's when they reach out to Dr. Bob Breyer, who is a specialist in Egyptian mummification. Dr. Breyer has spent years researching how the ancient Egyptians mummified their dead by extracting the internal organs precisely and with minimum amount of damage to the body. He noticed that the nasal bone was unbroken, and that instead that the brain was removed rather violently through the palate under the chin.
Oh!
This is very different from how it's done the Egyptian method.
Yes.
The Egyptian method, they have, and again, I'll go into it a little bit, but they basically, to quote the mummy again,
Yes.
they stick it up through your nostrils, scramble things about a bit, and then rip it all out through your nostrils.
I knew that quote.
Yes. So what they would do is they would break your nasal passage bone, and then they would liquefy the brains and basically drip them out, pour them out.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is not to damage the body as much as possible.
Right.
So by bashing open the skull underneath the chin to remove the brains was a huge amount of degradation to the brains.
Right.
At this point, in general, the Pakistan mummy appeared to be less skillfully done than a traditional Egyptian one would be. But the biggest issue was the fact that there was no heart in the Pakistan mummy.
Oh.
So Egyptians actually believed that the heart, not the brain, was the seat of intelligence. That's why they pour the brain out, just get rid of it. But the heart itself was what they believed is where you had all your decision making from. The fact that it was missing was a huge issue because the Egyptians would always either leave the heart in place, or they would put a scarab or some sort of amulet in the place of the heart instead. But in this case, there was absolutely nothing. The heart was completely gone. So this kind of led to speculation that maybe the mummy wasn't a royal mummy because it would have been done in the correct way. Instead, maybe they thought it was an ancient mummy dressed up to be a Persian princess by forgers who were trying to increase her value. Clearly, this hadn't been made by an ancient Egyptian, yet no other culture was known to preserve bodies in this way, so who mummified the mysterious princess? So after weeks of detective work, a very disturbing truth began to emerge. Remember I mentioned those rosettes earlier? Well, by now, Asma Ibrahim had cleaned the wooden box that the princess was kept in, and she re-examined the rosette carvings under a magnifying glass. Hidden away in the tiniest crevices, tight up against the carved emblem of the quintessential carved rosette, she made a horrible discovery. Pencil marks.
What?
What?
She deduced that these rosettes, which were so common in Persian architecture, were probably traced from a Persian monument in the first place.
Oh my goodness.
Those sneaky peekies.
So lead pencils, by the way, were only invented 200 years ago.
Ooh.
So this was clearly not the work of ancient artisans. And then more bad news.
Oh no.
The carbon dating results came back on the mat that the mummy was laying on and confirmed that it had been made in the last 50 years.
Oh no.
So there was only one conclusion. Everything surrounding the mummy was a fake.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
It had been concocted in modern times to fool the art world and make a lot of money.
Oh.
Unfortunately, once they came to this conclusion, the discovery took a much darker turn. The fact remains they had in their possession the body of a woman. CT scans of the body revealed that this woman had actually died in the recent past and that her neck was broken.
Oh.
An autopsy confirmed that this woman may indeed have been murdered to provide a body for the fakers to mummify, a body that they intended to pass off as an ancient mummy for millions of dollars on the international black market.
That's very disappointing.
Yeah, it is. It gets worse.
What?
But wait, there's more.
The most chilling part of all of this was the fact that it would have required a massive team to pull this off due to the extensive work done to create such a convincing forgery. You need someone who's good with anatomy and has an understanding of mummification techniques. You need some sort of person to get access to a newly dead body. You would need somebody to carve the stuff. I mean, it would have taken an entire team of people to create a forgery this convincing.
I'm a little mad.
It's kind of it's an interesting story, but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So the biggest question, of course, where did this body come from? Grave looting was a serious issue at the time, but the timing would have to have been perfect. In hot countries like Pakistan, where a body can quickly decompose, it would have had to have been mummified within 24 hours of death, so the body would have had to have been acquired almost immediately. The easiest way to do that, of course, murder. Scanning the body from head to toe, it was noticed that the spine was out of alignment, and the mummy had apparently received a violent blow to the lower spine. It appeared that her back was broken. The force was suggested to have come from behind her, so this suggested that someone snuck up behind her and broke her spine with a heavy blow from behind.
Oof.
It definitely sounded like murder, but to be sure, an autopsy had to be performed. The person that they turned to for assistance was Professor Chris Mulroy, one of the world's leading forensic pathologists. His job was to investigate the cause of death, so he was invited to the Karachi by Pakistan authorities. To find conclusive evidence for the police inquiry, they would have to cut through the thick, hard surface layer of resin-impregnated bandages, but the biggest concern, too, was that they couldn't interfere with Muslim customs or damage the fragile body it's inside.
I'm still picturing it to be gooey.
It's not gooey.
There's no goo.
It's not. You've seen a mummy before, right? It looks like jerky.
Yeah.
I know.
It's not gooey.
I want it to be gooey.
Well, it's
She
not.
looks like jerky.
Oh, okay.
So it took 3 hours to cut through the tough casing surrounding the body. When the back of the shell was removed, the first thing they saw was a tuft of blonde hair sticking through the bandages. The details of how this woman had been mummified became abundantly clear. Inside the mummy's shell, where it could not possibly be seen, each of her fingers had been bound separately, as the Egyptians had done. When the bandages were removed, they could see that her hair was gray. Only the tips were blonde. And there was dark hair elsewhere on her body, implying the hair was bleached somehow. With the outer casing removed, they could see how the fakers had embalmed this woman. They had packed her body with drying chemicals, bicarbonate of soda, and sodium chloride.
Ew.
So, baking soda.
and salt.
Yep.
Yep, common table salt. And there was also physical evidence of the terrible injuries that this woman's received, namely her broken spine. When samples of bone and tissue were sent for carbon dating, the results showed that this woman died in 1996.
4 years prior.
Oh
Yep.
my god.
With the bandages and gold mask removed, it was finally possible to get a clear scan of the victim's head. And here, there was a new revelation. Cause of death had been a broken neck.
Oh.
Her spinal column had been snapped in 2. Yeah, however, it could not be determined if the woman's neck had been broken deliberately or if it was from an accident.
Oh.
The evidence of a broken neck was enough to prompt the Pakistan police to launch a murder inquiry.
What happened to the guy that they got the mummy from? Did they just let him go?
The man who they found the mummy in his house, they did arrest him, but they weren't able to arrest him for the murder.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have enough evidence for him for murder.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, they did get him for trying to sell shit on the black market and for forgeries and everything. So he did go to prison, but
Oh, good.
But not like murder.
Yeah, like he's probably already out.
Oh, I'm sure. 19 years ago, he's definitely out.
Yeah.
Now. Unfortunately, no leads were made, and the mystery of the princess still has not been solved.
Wow.
Can I just say one good thing? Or like
What?
kind of a light thing? She probably wasn't a princess when she was alive, but like they like made a really pretty thing around her. They brutally murdered her. You know what? This is going nowhere. We should
And then
stop.
tried to cover it up because they're assholes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm still on the fence whether it was murder or not. They didn't really have enough evidence to say either way. It could have just been she might have been a coworker who worked with them making forgeries, and she died in a terrible accident. But I mean, the fact remains they still butchered her remains in order to try to make money off of her. I tried to find recent news on it, and really all I could find was an article in 2008 which stated that no progress had been made, and that after 8 long years of waiting, the princess was given a proper burial and given last rites.
That's so sad.
In a statement about the mummy, Asma Ibrahim said, quote, "It's really shocking and is a cruel act of humanity to do this thing to some human being. I feel upset about it because they've damaged the sanctity of someone in such a disrespectful way." And that is the sad and shocking story of the Persian princess. Really quickly, I do want to just kind of go into fake mummies very briefly, just a little paragraph about it. So the selling of fake mummies is actually not that crazy of an idea. It's not something that happens so much now, but in the Victorian era, mummies were sold constantly to the wealthy elite Europeans, and they would even be purchased from street vendors.
Oh.
I've actually got a picture of that, of a mummy being sold by a street vendor.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, they would usually be sold for mummy unwrapping parties, which are exactly as they sound.
Mummy unwrapping parties?
Can we have one of those? Have a mummy unwrapping party?
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
That sounds really terrible and illegal. I don't know.
It does.
Oh my God. No. Okay. So I got the idea.
Okay.
So we'll make it a cake, right?
Yes.
And we'll just cover the cake in fondant, like fondant strips.
Yeah, of course.
And then we unwrap the fondant, and that'll be the mummy unwrapping. And underneath it will be a really dry chocolate cake.
That sounds great.
Yes.
Everyone loves dry cake and fondant, right?
I love dry
That's
cake
my
and
favorite
fondant.
2 things, actually.
Yeah, so a mummy unwrapping party would actually be a huge social event, especially in the Victorian era. Everybody would get together, you'd get a mummy, you'd all stand around it, and then slowly cut the wrappings off to get to the mummy underneath.
Obviously. What else do you do on a Saturday night?
This sounds like the least fun party ever.
Can I just say, like, the Victorian people clearly needed Netflix or something, because my God.
Can I just, like, we played this kind of game around Christmas time where you wrap a bunch of stuff in, like saran wrap. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. It's like
That's really fun, actually.
It's considerably less sinister than a dead body, though.
Yeah.
Well, considering the bodies would usually either be burnt or just thrown away once they unwrapped them.
That's pretty terrible.
Mummies themselves, actually, were even ground up into powder and used for medical remedies.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I need. I just need some powdered mummy.
Ugh, don't
You got
even
a
get
bad
me
cough?
started on those things.
Yep.
Got a bad cough? Just powder mummy.
And even at that point too, people would kind of mummify flesh of just regular people or like beggars or the homeless, and they would sell that as being an ancient mummy's flesh, when in reality it was just flesh from like a homeless person who had passed away.
They need better hobbies. Like, this is something that just doesn't seem fun for anyone.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who's enjoying this? Ugh.
Rich Victorian people.
Yeah.
So fucked up.
So fucked up people. Yeah.
And ultimately, to keep up with the demand at the time, fake mummies were fabricated from the corpses of executed criminals, the elderly, the poor, and those who had died from hideous diseases.
Oh, jeez.
They would be made by burying them in the sand or stuffing them with bitumen and exposing them to the sun. So this is definitely a more sinister version, but unfortunately not that surprising, given how much of a fine this would have been to the right collector. And I think that's the thing. They were going to get this to a collector.
What?
Who, they were trying to sell this to a collector, not a museum. And the point of that was being a collector probably wouldn't have a ton of people check it out. And this was clearly a very convincing forgery. So I think the aim was, if we get a collector to buy this, he'll probably not even figure out that this is fake.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way really that they figured it out was tons and tons and tons of debunking. And they talked to some of the best and brightest in the field. Bob Breyer is a huge name in the Egyptian archaeology world. And also they had, one of the best people in forensics come and take a look at this. I mean, this was a lot of people were consulted. And the average collector probably wouldn't have done that. But he definitely would have dropped, 5, 6, 7 million on what he thought was a mummy.
Who collects mummies? Like, Karen, come look at my house. This is my mummy. This is my dead body that I just keep in my room.
Well, again, in the Victorian era, it's super common. A lot of rich people had at least one mummy staying in their house.
They have at least one mummy, preferably 2.
This is my mummy room.
Just normal things in my house.
Yeah, it's fine.
Hashtag mummy collector thing. So, do you guys have thoughts on the story now that I finished?
I'm sad.
It's sad.
I don't know.
It's
There's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack.
That was just, I was expecting, I don't know, so much more in the way of good. And then
I know.
It ended so abruptly and sadly.
Yeah. I know.
Lila's crying.
Might have shed a tear. No.
I got most of my information on this. There was actually in 2001, BBC did an excellent documentary.
Okay.
There was BBC Horizon documentary from 2001 called The Mystery of the Persian Mummy. Definitely worth checking out. If you look, or even if you just Google search BBC Mystery of the Persian Mummy, you can watch it right there. It was great. I just watched the whole thing. It was like an hour-long documentary.
Okay.
And it was really cool. And it goes a little more in, because I did cut a lot of information out, because it did get really in depth in terms of history of Persepolis and Xerxes and Rodogana and everything.
Okay.
So definitely, if you like this story, I absolutely recommend it. It was really, really interesting.
Okay.
But that's where I got most of my research from. Other than that, of course, there's Wikipedia, the BBC News article called Burial for Pakistan's Fake Mummy, which is the one from 2008 that I found. And then I also found an article titled, The Ruin of Mummies by Joyce Feiler.
Okay.
And that was a really good article if you're interested in learning more about mummies used as medicine or mummies in the Victorian era.
Ew, okay.
Yeah, so with that, I'm going to just kind of dive right into the quick guide to Egyptian mummification.
Okay.
So, like I said before, I'm not planning on going into a seriously in-depth coverage of mummification. It's complicated. Okay. I don't want to go into it.
Yes.
Honestly, I could talk about ancient Egypt forever, and no one wants that. So, so here are the basics. In ancient Egypt, mummification was mainly done to wealthy people, as the process was extremely time-consuming and very expensive. From start to finish, the whole mummification process took about 70 days.
Ooh.
Wow!
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay.
I thought it was just like a weekend thing.
Oh, no. I've got 12 parts lined up here.
Ooh.
Okay.
So, in 12 easy steps. I did actually, when I was researching this, I did find an eHow article on how to make a mummy.
God.
And I was very concerned. But when I opened it up, it was how to make a Halloween decoration mummy.
Okay, good.
Oh.
I was like, oh, this is a craft tutorial. Okay, that's less terrifying.
Yeah, that is less terrifying.
So the first step, the body would be ritually and painstakingly washed, removing all trace of dirt, blood, etc. The next step, step 2, would begin the removal of organs. The embalmers first had to remove the moist parts of the body, which would rot very quickly, especially in Egypt's heat. A cut would be made on the left side of the abdomen. Like I said earlier, it was about a 3-inch long cut. The internal organs, intestines, liver, lungs, stomach, were removed. The heart, which the ancient Egyptians believed to be the center of emotion and intelligence, like I said earlier, would be left in the mummy in order to be weighed against the feather of truth and justice in the afterlife by the god Anubis. So basically, if you had done bad things in life, then your heart would be heavy with the weight of your poor decisions. If you had done good things, if you lived a good life, your heart would be light, you'd be airy, you'd be happy. So what they would do is weigh the heart. So they'd put it in, one of those big scales.
Okay.
And they would be the feather of truth and justice. So if your heart weighed less than a feather or equal to that of a feather, then you would be granted to go into the afterlife.
Okay.
If your heart was heavier than the feather, the part crocodile, part lion, and part hippopotamus demon Amit would devour your heart.
Those are 3 very scary things. I can't imagine them combined into one.
It's quite terrifying. Yeah.
And I mean, those were the scariest things in Egypt too.
Yeah.
Hippopotami are terrifying.
So that's why the heart would be left in, because you need to make sure that the heart's there, so when you get to the afterlife, they can weigh it.
Oh, okay.
So then step 3, a hooked instrument would be used to remove the brain through the nose. The brain was not considered to be important and was thrown away, aka the scene in The Mummy.
Right.
It's called mummification. You'll be dead when they do this. Step 4, the body and the internal organs would be packed with natron, which is a natural salt that occurs in Egypt.
Okay.
For 40 days to remove all moisture, thus preventing decomposition. So that's one part that takes a huge part of that 70 days.
So no gooey, no juiciness.
Exactly.
Oh.
It would remove all of the body's natural juices over the course of that 40-day. It's literally like making jerky.
Yeah, literally.
Oh, okay, yes.
It's drying out the body.
Yeah, essentially. It's like preserving meat.
Yeah, gross.
I mean, you technically are preserving meat.
That is true.
You're making people jerky.
That is true.
Can that be the name of this episode?
People jerky?
People jerky?
Definitely. All right, so then step 5, the dried organs were wrapped in linen and they were placed in canopic jars. The lids of each jar were shaped to represent one of Horus's 4 sons. Their names were Imseti, who had a human head, and he was the guardian of the liver. Hapi, who had the head of a baboon. He was the guardian of the lungs.
These were in The Mummy, right?
Yes.
Okay, I remember.
Canopic jars, yeah.
Yes.
The canopic jars were. I don't know if they were the
actual.
Yeah, I don't think they were the actual deities, because there was like a lion-headed one, and there's not a lion-headed one traditionally.
Continue, sorry.
Kebesenuf, who had the head of a falcon, that was the guardian of the intestines, and Duamatef, who had the head of a jackal, who was the guardian of the stomach. So step 6, the body was then cleaned again, and the dried skin would be rubbed with sacred oils to make the skin more pliant.
Ugh. That shouldn't be in a sentence together. Skin more pliant. That's gross.
Well, they have to be able to move it in order to wrap with bandages.
I know, it's just gross.
I don't like it. Don't make me like it.
So, step 7, the body would then be packed with sawdust and rags, and the open cuts would be sealed with wax to prevent leaking. This was done in order to keep the same shape, so kind of to fluff up the body, essentially. Step 8, the body would then be wrapped in linen bandages. About 20 layers were used, and this would take 15 to 20 days.
Oh my god.
While spells and rituals were performed to ensure safe passage to the afterlife.
They had a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This was very expensive to do.
Wow.
This is why we're not drowning in mummies. I mean, that, and also because everyone in the Victorian era fucking bought them.
Yeah, and then had unwrapping parties.
Makeup, jewelry, and wigs were usually placed on the body as well in order to get as close to real life as possible. I mean, the whole point of mummification, I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here.
It's fine.
The whole point of mummification was to make you look as close to your living self as you could, so that when your soul returns to your body, you'd be able to recognize it.
So it's kind of similar to what we do for wakes, making the body look as normal as possible?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, the point of modern day wakes is more just for the to ease the emotional strain.
I just mean making the body look
right. Yeah.
Okay.
So they would put makeup on the corpse. Yeah, they would.
Okay.
Put, they would put sacred jewelry on. And then actually, pretty much everybody would have worn a wig because in ancient Egypt, to keep lice down, because lice was an issue in Egypt, and flies and everything. Most Egyptians shaved their head, men and women alike.
Really?
Yep. And they would just wear wigs.
That's very interesting, actually. Okay.
Yep. Most of them would just wear wigs because it's easier to keep clean. You don't have to worry about bugs. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Yeah. So most people would be shaved bald.
That's actually pretty cool. Okay.
I think about doing that every day.
Same.
Just wigs.
Same. In the case of the body as well, any missing or damaged body parts would be replaced with wooden alternatives so that the person's body would be complete in the afterlife. So for example, if, somehow you died in like a hunting accident or something and you lost a finger or something like that, they would create a wooden replacement for that part.
Huh.
And also protective amulets, usually necklaces, would be placed on the body For example, the scarab amulet or the Wajat eye, which is, you've seen that, everyone's seen it. It's the Egyptian eye symbol. It would be like an amulet, usually stone or lapis or glass sometimes too.
Okay.
An amulet in that shape. So once the mummy is completely wrapped, the next step would be a death mask will be placed over the bandages. That would usually be made of pounded gold or wood. The most famous death mask, of course, being King Tut's, which literally everyone has seen.
Yes.
Then step 10, the bandaged body would be placed in a shroud, like a large sheet of cloth, which would be secured in place with linen straps. Next, the body would then be placed in a decorated mummy's case or coffin. Then finally, step 12, the, quote, opening of the mouth ceremony would take place just before the burial. It's metaphorical, it's not actually.
Okay. I was like, oh God, what?
No, so the priest would touch the face of the coffin with special instruments to restore speech, sight, and hearing for the afterlife. The coffin would then be placed in the tomb, surrounded by possessions and small model workers called shabtis, which would work for the dead in the afterlife. And boom, there you go. You've got a mummified rich person.
All right.
Wow.
So yeah, that was my research on mummification. Again, very, very kind of light dive into it because it's obviously a very complicated process.
Right.
But yeah, so do you guys have any thoughts on ancient Egypt or mummification or even the Persian princess story?
There's all just so much. I don't know. I didn't know how long it took to make a mummy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a quick wham bam thank you ma'am. It was a
I mean, and it makes sense. I just don't know why I didn't think that like oh, that's what you do on the weekend is like that's your side job is you make mummies.
No, they would have actual like we have funeral homes. They would have morticians that specifically only mummified people, and that was the job that they had.
Really?
That's probably a good paying job.
Well, considering it was usually royalty that was mummified, heck yeah.
Yeah. You have to mummify one person in your entire life and you're set.
I guess I'm with Allie on the, I guess I'd never realized that it took that long. I definitely thought maybe like a week or two. And then I'm still sad about the whole Persian princess thing. Mummification's just gross. I mean, if I'm taking anything from it, ew.
Yes.
I mean, here's my thing. I'm biased because like it's what I'm, what I studied, what I'm interested in.
Yes.
But if I was to find a recent dead body versus a mummy.
Oh yeah, mummy. Yeah. All the way.
Well, I guess that's true. Okay, fine. Whatever, semantics. But I mean, in general, if I were to pick a way to be disposed of, I would not choose mummification.
All right. Well, I guess we can move on to bitch banter.
Woo-woo! All right. So for bitch banter for this episode, it's kind of not about mummies, but it does have to do with something about archaeology.
All right.
So I feel like it relates because these stories make us want to drink because they're dark and weird. So we go into serious bouts of like depression,
Oh, you mean like today's story?
On January 31st, 2019, Guy News posted an article titled Archaeologists Discover First Beer Ever Brewed in the UK.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
So archaeologists working near Cambridge have discovered tiny fragments of charred residue from the beer making process in the earth at the site. In the UK. Experts working at the site believe that the brew could date to the Iron Age as far back as 400 BC.
Wow.
According to Dr. Steve Sherlock. Come on. That's like the best.
Yeah.
So this is what he has stated. This is potentially the earliest physical evidence of the beer making process taking place in the UK. When looking at the find under a microscope, they noticed that there was evidence of the fermentation process, and they even saw tiny air bubbles that are typical of those formed in the brewing process. Weird. So apparently the porous structures of the fragments were similar to bread, but when they looked at it under the microscope, they saw pieces of cracked grain and bran, but no evidence of flour. Meaning it was from the beer making process and not from the fermentation that's present in bread. Also, beer in the UK wasn't made with hops until the 15th century.
Ugh.
So the beer would have been made with grain. Blech, disgusting.
I can only imagine like the smell of that. Like I know what yeast smells like.
Right.
So I can only imagine what that must have smelled like.
Just like burning grain. So obviously disgusting. So really cool that was the earliest findings of beer being made in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And it ties in with the Persian princess beer that I found.
Oh my god! We really did kind of
circle.
make it go around there. Okay.
It works.
And yeah, that's Bitch Banter. That's a little article about that.
Very cool. All right. Well, awesome episode, everybody.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. I'm complimenting myself, apparently. Good job, Kim.
Woo!
Yes.
But anyways, yeah. So thank you guys all so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this, please consider giving us a follow on Twitter at DeathDamesPod and on Instagram at DeathDamesPodcast. Instagram is where we go to post pictures from the stories that we cover. So if you're interested in, kind of seeing a little bit more, I'll definitely be posting pictures of the mummy, pictures of everything on to that as well. So you can also follow our personal accounts from there too, if you want to see pictures of pets that may have made an appearance in this episode. Also, we are looking for fan stories and, personal stories.
Yes.
Science, history, true crime, anything like that. So please, if you have a story like that, we really want to do a fan story episode.
Please.
Yes.
So definitely shoot us an email, let us know. We're all pretty social. We're pretty social. We're nice. We'll talk back. But yeah, if you share those to us at our email, which is deathdamespodcast@gmail.com. And we may share them on our fan story. Or even if you just want to shoot us an email, let us know how we're doing. We're definitely still early on, so we're looking for feedback.
Yes.
Constructive criticism.
Yes.
Don't just be like, I hate Kim's voice, because then, I'm not going to respond to you. If you liked this and want to hear more, please consider subscribing or following, and leave a comment on iTunes, rate and review if you can. We're looking to get that number up. And also, share with anyone you think would like our weird podcast. We want more friends. We want to, we want this to grow.
Remember, smart is sexy.
Bye.
Bye.